All Inclusive is brought to you by Destination Everywhere, a company dedicated to travelers of all abilities. My name is Eleonora, and I'm your host. And a big warm welcome today to Pieter Ghijsels. Did I say correctly? Otherwise, we start again.
Yeah, you do it perfectly. Thank you. Hi, Eleonora.
Hello, Peter. With Peter, we've known each other for quite some time now.
Yeah.
And yeah. And it's a pleasure to have you here. So I would like to just introduce you very shortly, but then I would like you to tell us more about yourself. And well, we know each other because you work for Visit Flanders, in more specifically in the accessibility team of Visit Flanders, which is the tourism board of the region of Flanders in Belgium, so northern Belgium.
That's right.
And yes, you've been there for 17 years, you were telling me.
Yeah, even 3 years as a project before. So we are reaching our 20 years soon. Yeah.
Of marriage.
Oh, yeah, our anniversary.
But before you were telling me that you've had quite a diversified career. So if you want to tell us a bit more about you so that our listeners get to know you before, as a person, before they get to know you as a traveler.
Okay. So yeah, when I graduated, I wanted two things. I wanted to do something that mattered to the world or to my community or whatever, something that mattered, and I wanted to write. So I started as a freelance journalist. That was already something that met my criteria, and then further on, I went to I worked for organization for printers and other graphic enterprises. Then I worked for an NGO for international cooperation. Then I worked for the disability movement, where I started to give travel advice to people with disabilities. And that's how I ended up with Visit Flanders.
So normally you give advice to other people. Today you really we want you as a traveler. We want to know how you travel when it's you that has the the luggage ready to go to the airport. But first we have to say that you're responsible for giving the name to this podcast because you won the competition.
Oh my God! Yeah, well, and that was part of my duty then to be on your show, because I'm not such an active traveler as some people think. It's all very, very close by, or at least culturally close by. Everything that I visited, but anyway.
I'm not sure about that, but we'll see. We'll see. I've heard your travel stories, so I know you've been around. But yeah, and also the other thing that we want to say is that you also play, and so some of the music of the podcast is also yours. But for that, you didn't get any chocolate. The chocolate you got was for the contest of giving the podcast the name. So
I'm doing it all to deserve chocolate,
But it's well deserved. It's okay. And next time I go to Italy, you get more chocolate then for the music. But let's talk about you. Let's talk about you and your travel style. So first, I want to know, what kind of traveler are you? Are you like a luxury traveler? Are you more backpacking adventurer? A mix of the two?
I think it's a mix. In general, when my wife and I travel, we will decide on a place to start and a place to end. But in between, things can change quickly. So we just know when we are arriving and when we are leaving, but that's about it, and where. So we like to follow the inspiration of the moment. We are not really prepared, strangely enough, my wife is the one who's preparing most of it, and so I'm most of it just too tired when we leave. I'm mostly too tired to do much about the preparations, but then it's up to me to and both of us to enjoy it.
Okay. So she
Um,
does the initial
yeah,
planning, and then you do the middle plan, the on the spot.
yeah, yeah. It's one of the things that I've learned that really works in traveling. That's asking the locals what to do. It is. There are plenty of stories where we just asked somebody what to do, and very often you end up, first of all, in a place that you wouldn't have expected, but also that's really worthwhile. That's really a story on itself. In my experience, Australians are the most active uh, ambassadors of their country or of their region. They will they I believe that on their national day they will just grab any stranger to give them travel advice, but even when they're abroad. But yeah, it's really something that struck me, and that I think many Belgians are feeling more reserved in. Uh, I must say, since we have had so many of those good experiences, we have also tried now to to learn more about where we are living, so that we can at least tell something interesting when somebody asks.
No, I understand. I'm from Rome, and I know less about Rome than I know about Brussels, where I've only been living for 7 years. So I'm a bit ashamed when I have friends coming to see me in Rome, because I'm like, I don't know anything about these places. I mean, this is the Colosseum. Look, it's beautiful. I mean, honestly, I'm super ashamed, but I can tell you everything about Brussels. So
Wow, yeah, that's also something.
yeah. But so are you, I mean, 5-star hotel or hostel?
Also, that is a mix, and sometimes that's really. I I think we are always good with taking some low budget places to stay, because we know that at one point there will be a moment that we will need the extra money. For instance, there was a time when we were in Norway and we had taken a road trip of whole Scandinavia, or a big part of Scandinavia, so Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and we ended up in Bergen, and well, we had we had stayed at a lot of camping sites and cottages that it was out of season, so it was really a very calm time to travel, and the prices weren't high. Well, Norway, the prices are always high, but anyway. uh, and we were in Bergen, and all of a sudden we found out that all the accommodation was booked, because it was the, I don't know, centenary, I think, of Edvard Grieg, the composer. So they had a big music festival, and yeah, everything was booked. But so the only room that was still available was in Scandic Hotel in the center of Bergen. But yeah, so all our money went that way. But at least we were happy to say yes to it, because it was an experience not to forget.
And I know they have great breakfast at Scandic. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
They also have
Yeah.
herring for breakfast if you want. That's one of the things I found most surprising, to have fish for breakfast
Oh
with a
yeah,
bit.
well, that says welcome in Scandinavia, and dill also, a lot of
Yes,
dill in it. Yeah.
exactly. And for breakfast, it's a bit early for me. I don't know about you. But now let's talk about travel stories. What was your
Ooh, yeah.
best travel moment and the worst travel moment?
The best, it's really hard to choose one. Um, it is there's yeah, one of the, yeah, what should I say? Okay. um, there's a story where we were in Italy, and we were there in a B&B, and at one point the owner came to me and said, Peter, I don't know if I can ask you this, but would you mind if we carried you up the hill? It was already late in the evening. We already had a few drinks, and he wanted to show me something, but he didn't want to carry me without my consent. So what was very nice of him to ask. But we ended up with a whole company of all the guests of that B&B at that time, all together carrying me up that hill, where we had fireflies in the bushes, and then the open starry sky, and it was something so out of the world that it was that was a moment that we thought, how would we ever have had this experience if they wouldn't have dared to ask me if they could
Now
carry me.
that's so cute.
And so with my yeah, so with a wheelchair, hold everything up.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, no, great. And I know I read. So you chose your Italian story, but I know you have other countries too.
Yeah, sure. That's a problem, you know. Okay, about Barcelona, there was this guy who. Well, no, let me say it the other way. We were. I was in my manual wheelchair. It was the first time I did a trip with my current wife, with my wife now. She was my girlfriend then, and we were trying to reach a place where you had a kind of how do you call it, a teleferic. Yeah, I don't know English word.
Pilar, I think.
The
I don't know.
funicular in Italian. So it's a kind of train in the a cable train, maybe like that. And so we had to reach the top of that hill to go aboard, but it took a while, and it was winding around the hill up to the top. And after a while, Karen said, "Peter, really, I'm exhausted." So I just stepped out and I started walking with my crutches next to the wheelchair. But in the end, we had to decide that it was really not possible, and we couldn't see the top because it was going around all the time. At one point, then Karen said, "Peter, let's start hitchhiking." I said, "Hitchhiking? Nobody's going to stop for somebody for somebody like us. Was I don't know, with a wheelchair and everything." She said, "Just give me 5 minutes." So we tried, and indeed, the first car stopped, and it was a small car with a young father with a young boy in it, and the father only, well, he didn't speak English, he only spoke Catalan. And so we said that we wanted to to the top, and he said, "Yeah, okay." And he started to rearrange his whole car. And to make the long story a bit shorter, we ended up 50 meters further where we were at the top.
The last stretch.
Really. The poor man had no means to tell us that we were
This is
almost
like
there,
five
so he
minutes.
just drove us up.
So good, but these are the good ones. Now you have to give us a terrible one.
Yeah, well, um, there was one time when we were flying. Uh, it's not really a place where I have stayed for longer than just a transit time, but that was in Dubai, the Dubai airport, and it was. They have a kind of wheelchair lounge, as they call it, and it's underground, and it's a place very, very bare. No, well, I'm talking about 6 years ago. It was everything was closed. There was nothing there. It was just chairs, and people were sitting and waiting. They took away your wheelchair and they took away your boarding pass. So you had to stay and you couldn't leave. The toilets were really too far away. It was really an awful place. Even you couldn't close your eyes for a bit because they were calling people's names all the time. And you just did a very good impression of my family name at the beginning of the show. But just imagine it starts with Ghij, and if people started to scream something, it took me a while before they even knew. Before, yeah, it took them a while before I even realized that it was
We've
about
been
me.
calling you for 2 minutes.
Anyway. Yeah, something like, and they were very angry that I only responded after so many times. But anyway, so on our return, I told my wife, well, I'm not going to do this because I just want to sit in the lobby. I just want to use the toilet, maybe have a cup of coffee, but that was all impossible there. So when we arrived to on our leg back, we I immediately said, okay, I don't want to go to that wheelchair lounge. I want to go to the lobby of so the transit hall. Yeah, you have to present yourself first at the wheelchair lounge because of the customs that is there. But then they would take me to the to the regular place. But apparently, it was considered that I refused assistance at that moment. So they told me in a quite triumphant well, in a quite victorious way that yeah, you have to take care of yourself. You have to walk to the airport, to the aircraft. I said, yeah, okay, I can walk a bit if that's necessary. And she said, you will. So the customer officer said, you'll also have to climb the stairs. But I said, yeah, okay, if need be, I can climb some stairs. Oh, you can do everything, so you don't need our help. Okay, you go. But it was really in a mocking way, and I really felt very yeah humiliated, and it really didn't feel like a proper way to deal with tourists. So when we got back, I sent an email to the airport to tell them my experience, and as a credit to them, they also replied, "Okay, we agree that this is below our standards, and we are going to look into it to change things." So whenever somebody goes there and can tell me how it is now, I'm always interested to know. But anyway, that was probably the worst, indeed.
Yeah, we have to ask somebody who's been there recently, because everybody is talking about Dubai as a destination that is accessible. They've done a big campaign, so I'm sure that they have improved a lot. But we want first-hand
Yeah,
information. I will ask the
of
next
of
travelers.
course, and yeah, yeah, and of course the airport is something else than the destination. Of course, I never. I would never went outside the airport, so I can't say anything about that.
No, but that's the most. The horror stories that I've heard so far, most of them have to do with the airport passage. So it's so that's really the critical ring of the chain, because everybody's is complaining at one moment or the other. So But so we had two of the best and one worst. Now, considering the current situation, I mean, 2020 must have been a quiet year. But
Yeah.
are you considering traveling again? What will it take for you to travel again? What has to happen so that you think, okay, now it's okay. I can pack my bags
Yeah. So
and start traveling again seriously.
I don't know really yet. I think it has to do with confidence, with the confidence that things are safe, and that I won't get COVID when I am somewhere, be it due to the airplane or due to whatever it is, or the train that I use or whatever. So the vaccine, yes, I'm looking forward to it. Will it be enough? I'll have to wait and see. Yeah, but I'm quite sure that the first trip won't be far. It will be domestic, or maybe to the Netherlands. I have a friend who showed me the existence of kind of boats with a cabin on top of it. It's like a small house on top of a raft, and yeah, it looks nice because you can just find your way on the water. It's yeah, it's something that might be the
Do you
first thing
need a
to do.
driver's like a boat driver's license, or can you just go with
No,
this boat
luckily not.
on the canal by yourself? I
Yeah,
would be terrified to get
yeah,
stuck in
yeah.
the canal.
Yeah, but there are some natural parks that you can use it. It exists in Germany, I know, and also in the Netherlands. And yeah, and you don't need a license to steer that boat because it's
Okay.
too slow.
It would take like 4 hours for you to actually crash onto the side of the canal, which is what I would probably do
Yeah,
if given the chance. But you can like ride it for
it
all
would
for
be.
yourself. So it's like you could go as a couple, you could have this like romantic
Yeah.
canal ride on
Mhm.
so it's
Yeah,
small, it's a
yeah,
small boat.
indeed. Yeah, it's meant for two
Oh, that's
people, I
really
think.
nice. It's
Yeah,
a St. Valentine's kind of COVID
yeah.
holiday. Mm. But so I would like to ask you now. Now let's go on the tips section. So where we give tips to the listeners. We did together a webinar a few months ago. Actually, you did the webinar because you were the speaker, where you were giving as accessibility manager of Visit Flanders, you were giving the your organization's recipe for success when it comes to making implementing an accessible destination. So that was the point of view. But I would
Yeah.
like to know if you have a
Mhm.
recipe for also planning the perfect holiday.
Well, yeah. There. First of all, I think you don't have to go away from home to feel like a tourist. That's maybe one thing that I already realized soon enough, since my parents a long time ago had guests from the Czech Republic, and they absolutely adored how our village had all different houses. That was so strange to them in that time. I'm talking about the 1980s, and just looking to my daily environment and through their eyes was already like a tourist's experience for me. Yeah. So, and when you are preparing, I think, well, we already said a few things, um, but I think that somebody once gave me the advice that traveling isn't easy, so you don't have to make it more difficult. And that's not meant to kill anything adventurous. Of course, it's good to test your limits. That can be very rewarding, as long as it's a challenge that you accept willingly. And so, but I see this more as a go ahead to indulge yourself whenever the occasion comes up. I remember one time when we were in in an absolute tropical rain, and we were on our way to a nice to yeah a moderate restaurant where we would have our first dinner at the destination, and it was such a shower that we just practically swam into another place that we hadn't pre-booked, to be clear, but we were just going to try to find a place, and we just jumped in wherever we could, and it was a very very nice place to stay and to have dinner, and we at that moment we had no idea about the price level of the place, so we were not well we were not sure how much a bill would cost. So we ended up ending in one of the top 50 worldwide restaurants without knowing it.
Where was this? In which country?
That was in
Okay.
Australia. We had no idea about the exchange
Oh
rate
no.
for at that moment. They were very beneficial at the moment. So later on, we realized
But then you had a great
where
dinner.
we
I
had
mean, your
been.
dinner was just like wonderful.
Well, now that you mention it, that could have been the absolute worst experience in my life because I couldn't eat because of the jet lag.
That's awful. I mean, the evening that you just want a relaxed dinner that, you just eat fish and chips
Yeah,
or a hamburger
yeah,
just to get it over with. And oh
indeed.
no.
I took one bite and all of a sudden my stomach said, "No, it's middle of the night. Don't." Yeah, so that's probably even the worst. Maybe we should just do a re-recording.
No.
Anyway,
So your
so
recipes just basically be
uh,
open, I think. Just be open to
yeah,
whatever will
indeed,
happen that's not been planned. That's a great
that's
planning.
right.
Not
That's
plan too
right.
much to leave space for the unexpected.
Yeah, and take your time. That's also a good advice that I'd like to give, especially if you have some accessibility requirements. It's so much better if you just know that you don't have to rush and that you have time to figure things out. It's it's very often something that a real bonus. Um, Also, I would say take a minute to learn some of the local vocabulary. Um, Not only when you have a disability, although there's a nice book of accessible phrases for disabled travelers in the Lonely Planet label. It's made by Martin Heng, and I believe that Josh Josh was the first one who made a kind of prototype in Japanese and English. Just even if you can say thank you and hello and possibly help in in the language in the local language, it will be highly respected, I think, and sometimes necessary. And also, what I like to do is to have to 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 make a photo album afterwards. So not let my photographs gather dust in my camera or on my phone or on my laptop, but to make these paper booklets so that at least sometimes I can just uh, take a look and be back in my holiday atmosphere. And what I also like to do is to make a playlist or to buy a CD that we listen to during our trip, because later on you only need that music to be back in the holiday atmosphere.
Super. So now I will ask you, what's your favorite soundtrack for your favorite past trip? And we have to make
Oh,
a playlist
well,
and
yeah,
share
I
it
made
on.
I made a kind of playlist for a trip we did to the United States, and um although we haven't listened so much to it, but I've kept it as my soundtrack for commuting from and to between home and my work. And yeah, nowadays when I listen to it, it really brings back memories of the time of commuting.
So now, yeah. So now it's a second level memory. So, oh, I miss
It
commuting
is.
so much now. I bet you never thought
Yeah.
you'd say that.
You're right.
But talking about Josh that you were mentioning just before with the
Right.
vocabulary, Josh Gristel, who was on the second episode of All Inclusive, Josh created this online community, Tabi Folk,
Yeah.
people on a journey. Because he was saying that everybody kept on asking him questions and privately via email, so he thought, let's just create a community so that everybody can see the answers to these questions and they can ask each other questions. And it's and you're on Tabi Folk too, so I wanted to ask
Yeah.
you, what's your favorite group, because there's many groups in Tabi Folk. There's geographic,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
huge. It's huge. There's so much. All kind of aspects that have their own room. It's amazing. But yeah, I I really like the Accessible Travel Academy because it is a place where you can discuss something that came along in the news and that or an article that you've read or something. It's a way to talk about accessibility, about accessible travel, about inclusion, about all those things that yeah that I like to think about, and that I'm happy to find some other people with similar ideas or with a similar mindset. Yeah, but but of course the fail photos are also
The
great. And
accessibility fails are always a big favorite. But now there's a question I wanted to ask you about books. Your favorite
oh yeah,
travel books or travel inspiration books or books about travel stories. Do you have any?
yeah. Well, I depends on how far you want to go. Uh, the first thing that came to mind was The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy from
It's very
Douglas
far,
Adams.
yes.
I don't know if you know it. That's really, yeah, that's out of this world in all senses. But it's got a great advice for every traveler, and especially for people who need accessibility. Don't panic. Yeah. So, but yeah, I really like the whole atmosphere. I believe it was originally a radio show, and then it became a book, and then it became a film. So you can still see how you want to, in what category you want to put it. And also Belgium is in it. Yeah, Belgium. Yeah, Belgium is, according to Douglas Adams, an intergalactic swear word that was only misunderstood in one particular planet, on one particular planet. But anyway,
So Belgium is the swear word.
yeah, Belgium is a swear
Okay,
word.
okay. I don't remember this detail because I read it many years ago. Uh, I'll go back to Google this.
Yeah, but more down to earth. I'm a fan of Bill Bryson's travel books, and especially Down Under is one of his titles. Adorable book, but you have to read it after you have visited Australia, because otherwise it will it makes a serious effort to convince you not to go.
It's a debriefing book.
It's kind of, yeah. It tells you about so many dangers that you will encounter. That, yeah.
Okay, well, but this is great. Thank you for your book tips too, and I would like to ask you now, before we say goodbye, where can people find you online if they want to look for you?
Well, yeah. I have I have a website called Toegankelijk op Reis, which is my hobby. It is well, it's only in Dutch, so in other languages I'll just call it TOR because it's a difficult one to pronounce. TOR is a website about traveling. It has travel tips for people who require some things of accessibility, and it's got travel reviews from those people, and it has all kind of useful links and other resources. Yeah, so that's one thing. And with well, thanks to the current situation of translation software, I see that more and more people from other places that don't speak Dutch also enjoy it. So yeah, that's one thing. Um, and yeah, for the rest, you can find me also on Twitter. I have also a very exotic name there, Valiesje, and valise is a suitcase. So it used to be the Twitter account of my work for the team, the accessibility team. But eventually they decided that they wouldn't continue it, so I took it over.
You inherited the Twitter account. This is great.
Indeed. Yeah, that's about it, I
Okay, but
think.
that's great because TOR is also on
Yeah,
Instagram and on Facebook.
are you right?
I'm
Well,
I'm doing
no, not on
your
Facebook.
PR.
Not on Facebook. No, no. On Facebook, it's not an account. It's just
Ah,
my
okay. Oh,
personal
sorry.
account that I have. But on Instagram, you're right. I have published a few photos there, but it's still a bit. Yeah, it's. I just started with it when the whole COVID epidemic started. So I hope there's still a lot of growing margin
Oh yeah,
afterwards.
definitely. And yes, your blog is also it's a huge resource. It's the automatic translation helps, I must say, because otherwise it's
This is the one of the wonderful things of this time, that you just can understand whatever. Well, unless they are trying to translate poems, then I would say
you never know. Maybe by
don't
pure
try.
chance it works. Maybe it's completely different type of poem,
Yeah,
but you get it translated. Well,
yeah,
Peter,
right.
it was great having you. I want to thank you so much for doing this interview, and I look forward to seeing you again, hopefully live, because we are not that far away. so,
Yeah,
so there is a chance we might
yeah.
meet in person, not that late. So
Yeah, sometimes it's so curious that you at one time you are talking to people in China or in Australia, and the next moment you're just from around the corner, but you're using Zoom or Skype or anything.
that
Anyway,
it feels a bit weird,
yeah.
but it will feel even weirder when we do the episode on the Belgians, where you and Eric will talk about
Oh,
Belgium, because this is coming up too. It's spoiler alert. We will be talking about Belgium a lot,
I'm looking
but
forward to it.
online, so we won't meet, even though Eric is in Brussels too, and you're half an hour away from us. So
Indeed.
thank you again. Thank you
Anyway,
very much, Peter.
you're welcome, and anytime.
See you soon.
If there's a new podcast coming up or anything, you just tell me,
Yes, I will.
and I'll do the brainstorming with you.
Great. Thank you. I want to do one on movies. So, yeah.
Oof, okay.
But we have to prepare. See you soon. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
What can Destination Everywhere do for your company? We have a number of B2B services to help kickstart travel companies and organizations now that the world is getting back to an almost normal condition. We promote inclusive travel companies, we offer support in the creation of accessible tours and packages worldwide, and most of all, we help DMOs and tourism boards to showcase their accessible destinations. Visit destinationeverywhere.eu and select the B2B page to learn more about what we can offer your organization.